The Midnight Dance by CartoonNerd12, Chapter 11. You're in what? 5 mares shouted at the edge of Fluttershy's bed the very next morning. In love, Fluttershy repeated, with Discord. But how? Why? Rainbow went right in her face. It just happened. And honestly, girls, I think I've been in love with him ever since I helped him get out of that prison. I only just realized it now. But, sweetie, motioned Rarity, he's not even the same species as you. Spike's a dragon, and Applejack fell for him, and neither of you are even telling her to move on. There was a silence until Pinkie said, Ooh, she's got a point. Suddenly Applejack chuckled. That she does, Pinkie. That she does. She went to sit next to Fluttershy. I don't care, just as long as he doesn't hurt you. He won't. He cares about me too much that he'll make sure no pony ever hurts me. You're sure? Asked Twilight. Very sure, she answered back. Well, we may not entirely approve, but we'll trust your judgment, and if he's willing to protect you, then that's all that matters to us. But if he screws up... Rainbow rubbed her hooves. You know who to call. I'm sure it won't come to that. She reminisced of the previous night when she kissed him quite a few times. All right, now that we have admitted that we all have special sun ponies in our lives, we need a way to convince Mother to let us choose who to marry at our own time, stated Twilight. Absolutely, said Rarity, but can it wait? I have to meet Fancy Pants after breakfast. And I promised to go and see the cheese so we can get his joke shop back to being fun. Soren and I were going to do some cloud busting before he has to go back to Cloudsdale in a couple of days. And I have to feed my animals. I'm already late for making breakfast. Alright, you guys go on ahead. I'm going to keep looking up a book that might help us out of this mess. They nodded and headed out the door. When breakfast was done, Twilight was taking books out with Spike, who was making a list of them to remember where the books should go. As much as she was keeping to her objective, she wanted to find out if Spike did have feelings for her sister Applejack, now that she knew she had feelings for him. But since he went out the other day to help Applejack, it seemed possible. She carefully approached the subject by asking a question. So, did you have a hard day yesterday? Somewhat, he answered, but AJ and I got through it, he said in an almost dreamy way. She smirked, thinking, AJ, huh? Then said out loud, well, that's good to hear. At least you won't be too exhausted to help me out. No, sirree. Although I'm certainly going to miss laundry duty. He sighed. Okay, she said slowly, obviously missing something, but she decided to let it go and continued on with her book findings. Back in the kitchens, Applejack was helping clean up the kitchen from breakfast rush in order to get ready for the lunch hour. Applebloom was helping her out by using a damp cloth to scrub the floors. Applebloom then said, So, how did things go with Spec? AJ stopped what she was doing. What do you mean? Her cheeks started flushing. I have no idea what you're talking about. Give it up, Applejack. I know you got a crush on that dragon, and yesterday you got to spend the whole day with him. So tell me everything. She jumped up and down. Okay. She's as bad as my sister Pinkie. I wish I was your sister. Well, in a way, you are. She pulled the filly into a hug. For as long as I've known you, you've always been like another sister to me to take care of. Applebloom's eyes widened. You mean that? She smiled at her. I do. She hugged her tightly. And since I can trust you, I might as well tell you. A grin ran across Applebloom's face. I'm all ears. Once she finished the whole tale, Applebloom was hopping all around the place and yelling out, Oh my gosh, this lady's gonna tell you I love ya! Well there, Nellie. She grabbed a hold of her. Now let's not get ahead of ourselves. But Applejack, what if it's true? How would you feel then? Well, I'd feel pretty good. I guess, in fact. She and Spike start singing Far Longer Than Forever. She turned back to face Applebloom. The filly stood there gawking, blinking in bewilderment. Applejack cleared her throat and blushed. That's how I would feel if he told me. He has to know! Applebloom jumped. No! I will not embarrass myself if he still has feelings for Rarity. I need to know that he loves me and only me. She sighed. Come on, we have to help finish cleaning up, she said as she set off to the counter with the filly right behind her. Our Alicious sat on his perch while his owner was skimming through books by using her magic. Oh, how Alicious, you don't know how lucky you are, she told him. Who? Hooted the apple. You, that's who. Oh, right. She blushed in embarrassment, forgetting Owls always said that. Spike came up then, holding more books. I found these on the top shelf. Performing a spell, she looked through them and said, Oh, I found those yesterday when you weren't here. Twilight, think maybe you should give up this search? Obviously a book isn't going to help you with what the Queen has already decided. But I have to try, Spike. Not when I finally found... She covered her mouth before she could say anything else. Found what? Nothing. It's nothing. Come on, Twi. You know you can tell me anything. Not this time, Spike. Too much is at stake here. Seeing a disappointed look on his face, she quickly said, Why didn't you go and see if Applejack needs help with lunch? She turned away for a second. I'm sure she could use a claw. She saw that he was already gone and thought, Yep, looks like he's fallen head over hooves. She giggled before resuming her search, even if it was hopeless. Suddenly she heard a voice that made her quiver in excitement. More reading to do, I presume? She turned around to see Flash by the door and smiled at him. Research, actually. But reading is involved. Who? A voice hooted. Who's this feathery guy? Flash said, seeing the owl on the perch. She chuckled. This is our Alicious, she said, handing out her hoof for him to get on and had him face the guard. Our Alicious, this is Flash. Who? Flash, that's who, he told the owl. Who? Don't worry, he says that a lot. So I see. They both started laughing, and then our Alicious flapped onto Flash's back. Ah, he likes you, said Twilight. That's good to know. He turned his head back to the owl. I like you too. Ooh! Our Alicious hooted, as if to say likewise. They laughed again. Wyona barked as she watched her mistress bake apple fritters. Wyona, shush! Applejack told her under her breath. Chef Gustav is in the other room, and he'll complain if you're in here. Looks like I arrived just in time, said a familiar voice. She turned to see her favourite dragon. Spike! I was just thinking about you. She turned to blush. You were? His eyes were filled with hearts, but then he remembered to play it cool. That's awesome. I was just thinking about you too. It was his turn to blush. You were? She felt hope swell in her heart. Sure, so what's the problem here? Wyona came up to me. Normally around this time I play with her, but one of the cooks has gotten sick, so they need an extra hoof to get it done in time. Chef Gustav doesn't like pets in his kitchen. I hate to ask this, but can you maybe... He lifted a claw. Say no more. I'll play with Wyona while you keep working. Suddenly he felt her arms wrap around him. Thank you, she said into his ear. You don't know how much this means to me. He sputtered, You're welcome. It felt so right to be in her arms that he never wanted to leave them. But she broke away from him and gave him the leash he needed for Wyona. He said to the dog, Come here, girl. Wyona barked and landed on top of him, licking his face. Ah, okay, heel. AJ giggled at the side. Have fun, you two. Spike sat up, saying while putting on the leash, I'll be back with her in an hour. He walked her out. Or, rather, Wyona walked him out. Fancy Pants clocked to the suite that Rarity owned. They agreed to meet in that room for now, since their confession of their newfound feelings for each other. He was about to knock on the door when he heard from the other side of the door was his love shouting, Opal, no! He rushed in to see the white feline high up on a shelf licking her paw. Opal, please come down from there, she begged. What seems to be the trouble? He asked. Oh, Fancy, darling, it's Opal. She refuses to come down. Have you tried? He pointed to his horn. I dare not. Last time I did that, she wouldn't come near me for a whole month. This is problematic, he pondered. Yes, so I'm trying to get her down without the use of force. Fancy analysed the situation, therefore coming up with a solution. I'll be right back. He left the room for a while, and then came back magically carrying a bowl and a glass bottle full of cream. He set them both down, poured the cream in, and called out to the cat, "For you, Miss Opalescence." He gave her a bow. Opal was intrigued by the pony's manners, and slowly came down and began drinking the cream. Fancy smiled to a completely baffled Princess Rarity. "Oh, my!" "It was nothing to it, really. Just had to appeal to her nature, since I do know for a fact she loves being pampered." "That she does." "Just like her owner." "Right again." She batted her eyelashes at him. "And do you know what would make me feel pampered right now?"
No. I'm afraid not."
He played along. She wrapped her hoofs around him. "This would." She pulled him into a kiss. Pinky and Cheese were unpacking boxes at a fast pace, putting things back the way they were. Gummy was biting on Pinky's tail while she was bouncing around. "Cheesy, can you take Gummy around now?" she asked her cold friend. "Sure, I can do that." He took hold of Gummy and put him on his tail. "Aw, he's wagging his own tail. That means he likes it," she giggled, resuming the redecorating. Rainbow flopped down on a cloud, saying,
"Ooh, I'm beat."
"Yeah." Soren flopped beside her. "Me too." A whirling sound filled the air, and a tortoise with a propeller gear came up to join them.
"Tank, perfect timing, buddy."
Dash seized him. Soren chuckled while rubbing his shell. "He always was one tough little dude." She smirked. "Tank loves you too, and I'll prove it." She moved him to face the colt, and in a second the tortoise licked Soren's cheek. "Ah!" He wiped the kiss away. "Gross, Tank! Gross!" Rainbow was guffawing away. Fluttershy was humming around the gardens, feeding all the animals that lived in Canterlot Gardens. Then she came across her favourite of the lot, her precious Angel Bunny. She was trying to feed him his carrots, but he was being difficult. "Oh, please, Angel, just 3 bites?" He would not budge. 2 bites, she drew out. 1 bite, at least. But he just pushed the carrot away.
"Stubborn fellow, isn't he?"
A voice came from behind her. She turned around happily to see the creature she deeply loved and ran into his arms as he twirled her a bit before putting her down. Then she went back to her problem. "I don't know what else to do. He won't eat. He needs his nutrients." Discord cracked his knuckles.
"No biggie. Let me handle this so-called angel."
He went on all fours and stared down at the rabbit, who in turn stared hard at him.
"Now you listen to me, Angel Bunny," he growled. "You've got this mare, who practically serves you paw and foot. You know how many rabbits or creatures would pay to give in your place? So, you better start treating your owner with some respect. You got that?"
He eyeballed him with a large eyeball that scared Angel to grab a carrot and start eating it whole. Discord faced back to his mare and gave off a proud pose.
"And that takes care of that."
"Thank you," she whispered.
"So tell me, my dear, did you actually tell them?"
"This morning."
"And?"
"They didn't completely approve."
He scoffed. "As was expected."
"But they trust my judgment that you will not harm me."
"Of course I won't." He took her into his arms. "I could never harm a single hair on this pretty mane." "But you finally feel better that they know?"
"Very. But it will still take some time for them to get used to it. But all that matters is that I'm free to be with you." She nuzzled onto his chin.
"I as well, Fluttershy. I as well."
He rubbed his chin to her head. When the family had finished with lunch, Celestia said, "Girls, it is best you don't go anywhere this afternoon." "But why?" Twilight questioned. "You'll have to meet with Miss Harshmony for your betrothal standards." "What in the hay is that supposed to mean?" Rainbow stipulated. "Yes, Mother, please clarify as to what you are talking about," Rarity asked. By then Miss Harshmony walked in when she overheard them.
"It means, your highnesses, that you must look your best when being presented to your future husbands."
She looked at Rainbow Dash and Applejack, who were wearing their simple gowns.
"And it seems I have my work cut out for me."
Twilight gulped. Mother, is this really necessary?"
"Quite necessary, your highness,"
Miss Harshmony replied for the Queen. The girls gave each other glances. Rainbow grit her teeth while the seamstresses fit her in a frou-frou dress, and the hairdressers put her hair up. Next to her was AJ. who was having the same trouble as the seamstress tightened her corset, making it hard for her to breathe. Rarity was complaining that she couldn't have her mane the way she wanted it done, or choose a dress she had made. Fluttershy was being fitted in a big ruffled green dress, and her hair was up in 3 bumps. The makeup ponies were deciding how much blush to put on her. Pinkie was having a hard time standing still, and her dress wasn't making it any easier while her poofy mane was up. Twilight had her hair in a bun, and her dress was big and puffy. They all had to wear their ceremonial tiaras. Once the fittings and manes were done, Miss Hartwinnie had them line up in their birth order. She looked them over one at a time, going,
Yes, properly attired. Much better. Suitable? Acceptable.
Rainbow whispered to Applejack,
What is this? Bridal inspections or bridal inspections?
Both of them ended up giggling. That caught Harshwinnie's attention.
Who's snickering? They both started laughing away. What is so funny? She demanded.
Rainbow said between laughs,
Sorry, I thought you said who's snickering.
That caused the rest of the princesses to release a laugh, and Pinkie laughing so hard her hair came undone and buttons on her dress popped off.
Now look what you've done. We'll have to redo the whole thing.
The jokes ended when Pinkie was forced back into another dress, and Miss Harshwinnie began inspections on each of them. She turned to Fluttershy and raised her chin and stated,
You have a pretty face, and know when not to talk. You will make an excellent wife for a duke or regent.
She moved on to Rarity.
You are too beautiful. That could send the wrong message to any noble.
She moved on. Rarity sent her an appalling look and said under her breath, Why, I never! She moved around Applejack.
You are a hard worker. No doubt you will keep on your hooves to serve your husband well. But you must keep up appearances to prove you are a lady of noble birth.
With that she went on to Rainbow, saying,
The same goes for you. You are a young mare born into royalty. Leave the fighting and expeditions to your husband, as it will be your duty to greet him whenever he comes home. You mean I just have to sit on the sidelines? As it will be expected of you.
She went on to Pinkie.
As for you, princess, you need to stay in one place, and not think of having a party every day.
No parties? But no parties means no happiness, and no happiness means every pony becomes sad and gloomy.
I am sure every pony can do without a party every single day.
Have you ever been to one? She lifted her head high to not answer that, and moved on to Twilight.
And for you, your highness, you are the prime example of how a wife should be for a royal. It is a shame you will have to marry a lesser noble, since your sisters need to marry in higher status.
What do you mean?
Well, as the heir to your mother's throne, you need a regent who is not in line for his own throne.
She turned to face all of them.
As for the rest of you, you will need to be by your husbands as their queens, or any title bearing of their own.
It suddenly occurred to the girls that by marrying far from Canterlot, they would probably never see each other again. This marriage business just became more real to them than ever.